Alcoa and South 32. There are so many other options that have so much less environmental impact that we say no to the road in this route. The road is fine, the route needs to go.
Enough. 80% of the Swan Coastal Plain has been destroyed by development over the years. And now here we are where we literally have a system that has been undisturbed, that is a beautiful piece of bushland. A road that was designed 50 years ago under an old planning regime, which the government says, nah, we've still got to have that road in that place. I believe these people here coming here today will make a statement to that government to say, hey, enough is enough.
G'day, I'm Bob Brown. I'm here with the friends of Gelorup near Bunbury, south of Perth in Western Australia. And this great throng of people is coming to protect the beautiful woodlands here, which are full of rare and threatened creatures, including the critically endangered western ringtail possum. Trees including the biggest mistletoes on earth. All to go if the ring road proposed for Bunbury rips through these forests in the coming weeks under the licence of Tanya Plibersek. Come on, our new Minister for the Environment. You were shocked by the loss of so many creatures here in Australia and the threat to so many more and the fragmentation of their habitat. You said you were going to change that. Come in at this 11th hour, reverse your decision. And for these good folk, but more importantly for all Australians and for future generations, which you spoke so poignantly about, stop this destruction and put the ring road over there on cleared land. It's as simple as that. Have a win-win, reverse your decision and put smiles on these anguished people's faces.
We acknowledge our respect for all the traditional owners of this Wadandi Noongar country that we're on, past, present and emerging, and for their connection to land, waters, air, skies, living things and spirits. We also acknowledge that this land was never ceded, but was stolen, and that massacres like the Minninup massacre of 1841, well documented, not far from here, took place. There's also discrimination, mass stealing of children and other injustices were suffered by First Nations people here and around Australia. We look forward to the Uluru Statement of the Heart being adopted and reconciliation and healing being achieved. Finally, thank you. Yes, tingles. Finally, we acknowledge that this corridor in Gelorup is an integral part of Noongar country. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We believe in our faith that God gave us creation as a blessing and it's to be looked after. And so it absolutely breaks our hearts when we see the beauty of God's creation being destroyed like this. And so I'm going to say a prayer of blessing on this land. And I'm going to invite you, if you want to raise your hand in blessing of this place. We believe that creation is sacred and it's our responsibility to care for it. And so if you wish to, would you raise your hand as we bless this land? Beautiful Creator God, we give you thanks for the gift of creation. And we ask your forgiveness when we have not treated it well. And so we ask for your blessing and your protection on this corridor. Lord, keep it safe and change the minds of those who would destroy it. This we ask through the God who created. Amen.
Amen. Thank you all for coming to stand in solidarity with our community that has been fighting against this proposal since 1995, to bear witness to the beauty of this place and to demand action from our politicians, particularly our Federal Minister, to defend this area. This is a small patch by national standards, but it represents a fight that is going on in 100 or more communities around Australia to protect these areas. In the week after releasing the State Native Vegetation Policy, the State Environment Minister signed off on the destruction of this corridor. We hold him to account. In the same week as the highly publicised release of the State of Environment document, where the Federal Minister stated in no uncertain terms that these small patches of fragmented, high biodiversity and habitat must be protected, her delegates signed off on its destruction.
More shame.
We will hold her to account.
Yep.
This area contains more than 3,000 mature, diverse species of trees, including 6 of the biggest trees recorded in their species. The largest Marri, Jarrah and Tuart trees in this corridor were here before white settlement. The waterways have flowed seasonally and are flowing today, providing habitat for the IUCN Red List black-striped minnow. The trees and hollows provide habitat and nesting for critically endangered western ringtail and black cockatoo species. Our Prime Minister is nationally talking of healing the heart of this country with the hope of constitutional recognition and a voice to Parliament, whilst his Federal Minister is ripping the heart out of this community by approving the destruction of critically important biodiversity. We ask that you contact the Prime Minister, the Environment Minister, and demand that they actually listen to recent information and to new information that has been put in front of them. We are exploring our own legal opportunities to force their hand, because for the last 3 years in particular, we have tried reason, we have tried logic, we have tried common sense, we have tried quoting recovery plans, we have tried quoting conservation advice, and we have been ignored. Please consider consider supporting us in any way that you can, with letters, phone, email, and of course money. Thank you again for your amazing support to date.
This is a road in the wrong place.
Yes.
While once it may have been in the right place, the current plans for a road are those that were never envisaged at the time. At the time, the potential environmental impacts were never considered. Things have changed since the plans were put in place, as in many locations. Despite planning for the future, things change. People's opinions change. Our needs change. Now, the current road, as we've heard already, will have massive negative impacts on many environmental and social values. The environmental impact, again, as partly been mentioned, will affect threatened species, including the western ringtail possum, black cockatoos of 3 kinds, and black-striped minnow. It'll affect threatened ecological communities, the Banksia woodland of the Swan coastal plain. It'll impact significant trees, some of which have already been mentioned, but they include 2 significant mudjas and the largest hollyleaf Banksia woody pear. The biggest impact will be on the western ringtail possum. Despite efforts and requirements during the clearing efforts to go ahead to get western ringtail possums to move on by shepherding, many will be displaced to environments where they won't survive or aren't wanted, and some may even be killed or injured. EPA, who made the decision to approve the project, and DVCA, who gave the advice on this project to the EPA on environmental matters, acknowledge that there will be a large loss of ringtail possums as a consequence of this project. They'll lose their habitat, individuals will be lost, and it will take a long time, if ever, for them to recover. Yet they have given the project approval. The environmental regulators have sided with the developer, not with the environment. They are meant to be our stewards of the environment, not facilitators of development. When you read the documents that they've written, they have contrived and come up with a variety of untested means to argue and to try and convince everybody that this project will be okay. I have never seen in an EPA report so much effort to make the project look acceptable. That is the job of the proponent, not of the environmental regulator. They are meant to be critical and protect the environment from the impacts that are proposed. So this project will not be okay, it will not recover. This road should not be built. A ring road around Bunbury definitely is needed, just not in this place. There are other options. The option you choose depends on what you value. In this case, the government and main roads appear to value farmland more than they value native vegetation. This is a great pity and a shame, because it is no longer appropriate, as native vegetation is now in short supply, not farmland. These threatened ecological communities and threatened species are threatened for a reason. The reason is we have destroyed most of what we had originally. There is now, in this area, a lot of already cleared land. That's where the road should go. There's plenty of opportunities to the east of the route. That's where the road should go.
Pay my deep respects to Wadandi elders, past and present, and to all traditional owners. And when I walked through this incredible place a few years ago with some of the locals here, the landscape here resonates, and I think that's partly what explains why there's so many of us here today. People have come all the way from Tasmania to support this incredible work, because we can feel how precious this place is, we can feel how special it is, we can feel, of course, that it's worth a hell of a lot more standing than as a road that nobody wants and nobody needs. In 25 years or so of fighting for precious places like this, I'm still bewildered by the failure of process. The only way that I can understand it and try and understand how decision makers arrive at such a ridiculous conclusion is by looking at the ways that they make those decisions on paper, the way that they box them up into different compartments and pass those decisions off to different bureaucrats, and over many, many years end up with the most illogical, irrational, clearly wrong decision that all of us can plainly see needs to be changed. But this is real, and that's the job of community, I think, is to make it real. It's to keep it real. When the decision makers are looking the other way, when they're hiding, when they're ignoring the impacts that we would see, it is so real. When Carly explained to me what would happen to the western ringtailed possums, it breaks my heart to think that here as well they'd be poking those possums out of trees with sticks. They fall to the ground with their babies on their backs and they die. I mean, how can we tolerate something like that? We can't. It is intolerable. And that's why we're here to stand up, to speak out and to say that that's unacceptable and we will not accept it. The other thing that I've learned is that there's one thing that makes change, and that's us. And we have a capacity to make change because we have clear sight, because we can see clearly how wrong this is, but also because we're willing to come together like this. And that's why we've come from WA Forest Alliance, is why Bob and Paul have come across from Tassie, is to support the incredible people who've been doing this work since 1995. They know what needs to be done. They should be put at the front of this decision making. We should be asking the traditional owners what we should be doing to protect and care for this country. We shouldn't be asking ministers and bureaucrats who plainly cannot make the right decision. But what we do need to do now is we need to direct all of this energy and attention back at those decision makers, because we have one decision maker right now in the new Minister Tanya Plibersek who has the power to intervene. Remind yourself, what are the three things about this incredible place that I want to say to the Minister because that's how we're going to keep it real for her. That's how we're going to take this energy and we're going to give it to that decision maker, because that's what we have to do. In the end, she gets to decide what happens to this place, and we have to make sure she makes the right decision. So thanks so much. Thanks so much to the incredible people fighting, and we're going to get this done.
I just think it's so important to have these young people standing up here today to show exactly what we're fighting for. We're fighting for our young people, our future generations to come and see this amazing place that we have here, these beautiful wildlife, and this amazing corridor which we need to protect. I would also just like to thank everyone for coming today and supporting what we know will be destruction at its worst. Destruction of 70 hectares of woodland with rich chewit and banksia trees like no other place in the world. Destruction of habitats of our black-tailed cockatoos who rely on this area for nesting. Destruction of habitats for the western ring-tailed possums who call these woodlands home. Destruction of a community who cares for each other and lives within and protects this woodland area. And destruction of the chance for future generations to enjoy, learn about and walk amongst these beautiful woodlands. To see these trees, rich with endangered species, beginning to thrive with protection, and to see the full bloom of our wildflowers as we can start to see right now. To live in a community not divided by concrete, but connected by nature. Why is our government placing the well-being of these future generations and the natural environment below a road that will save people less than 10 minutes between Perth and the southwest? Yay! It's not good for future generations, it's not good for our natural environment, and it's not good for Bunbury. Climate change is the biggest threat we face, and our Federal Environment Minister has just signed off on this destruction of the Gelorup Corridor. The State of the Environment report recently released by the Minister stated that destruction of this level should not happen, stating that no further loss of primary forests or critical habitats for threatened species should be allowed. Then why are we here still trying to protect and defend the Gelorup Corridor? Yay. This is a prime example of our governments not putting people, communities and the planet first. What is the point of the State of Environment report if you won't take the advice given? You are the Minister for Environment. So why don't you start protecting it? Future generations are watching you and you will be held accountable. We all have a duty of care to protect the planet for future generations, including you. We will fight to protect the Gelorup Corridor. We will fight to protect the planet, but we need everyone to bring about change. It is time to wake up our whole community and start speaking up and fighting back. Thank
you. Recognition and understanding of what is under threat and what has already been lost is definitely growing. By the time the next elections roll around, those numbers will have grown again, and there will be much more alarming evidence of what is happening to our climate and our precious ecosystems in places like this. With you, we hope that Minister Plibersek will reconsider the short-sighted thinking that underpins the approval of this road. You have worked so hard and so smart. It's been very moving to shift the thinking of those in power. But when all the official channels have been exhausted, when there are no more appeals or processes between you and the bulldozers, when you feel helpless and just so bloody angry at the stupidity that prevails, when all of that happens, only direct action remains. Non-violent civil disobedience is consistent with all that you have done. You have been so patient, you have been so considered. It makes an impact. It gets attention. It makes the arbiters of power look like the lazy, foolish bureaucrats and politicians that they really are.
Yeah.
And most of all, it feels right. In the face of such abuse of power and dumb thinking, We must act for ourselves and for our children and their children. In the final analysis, that's all we can do. Thank you.
It is a global biodiversity hotspot. More than 90% of this area has gone, and the species are declining. This critically endangered ringtail possum could be the next species to become extinct, and Australia has the highest rate of extinction in the world. Now that's our shame, but now we're going to talk about how we're going to change it. But just by being here today, all of you are like a light in the darkness. What you do matters. For the black cockatoos, we have seen the Minister for Environment, the Minister for Planning, and the Minister for Forestry. And they've all said the same thing. We completely agree with you. We wish we were on the other side of the table, but there's nothing we can do. There is nothing we can do. Well, now we're going to Parliament. We're going to Parliament, and we're going to make a giant black cockatoo out of candlelight on Tuesday, the 9th of August. That's coming up in just a week and a bit. I've got little leaflets down there if you want to pick one up. There are 3 species of black cockatoo that are threatened with extinction here. The people of Gelorup are very welcome to come along to speak as we hand over our petition calling for the government to protect the last of the habitat of the black cockatoos, to restore the habitat of the black cockatoos, and to make sure these black cockatoos here are here for many generations to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to the amazing, incredible team of people who put this together at very short notice. You know who you are. Everybody steps up at the last minute, and thank you. And everybody's pointing at me going, "Don't forget Bob!" As if I would forget the amazing, incredible, fantastic Bob Brown. Thank you all again. Please put your hands together for Bob. It is National Tree Day today. So we would like to ask Bob and his partner and the smallest member of our community to please plant a truant in the corridor and hope that in 50 years our children will see them. Thank you all very much. If you would like to join us and come on a walk through this beautiful area, please do. Right before you go home, and ring the Prime Minister's office and write your email to Tanya Plibersek. Thank you all very much.